One. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's show. All right. As we get started, we have our host today. Would you all introduce yourselves?
Hey y'all, this is Tavonna. Thank y'all for joining us on this Super Sunday.
This is Tank, not the singer, but it's Tank.
So today we're going to discuss a trending topic. We want to talk about advantages and disadvantages of workforce reductions and budgetary constraints. You know, everybody's getting worked up about these layoffs that are happening and it's wrong and we shouldn't do this, we shouldn't do that. Some people are saying, hey, we need to go around and audit departments and programs and see where our money is going. And if it's being wasted or nothing productive is happening, we need to cut it. I want to get some feedback, of course, from our listeners. You can type something in if you don't want to talk, but from my host, tell me how you all feel about the situation. Thank Tavonna. Talk to me.
Well, Tank is going to kind of take the lead on this one because I really don't have nothing. I don't know because I do not watch the news. I have not watched the news since 2008. I don't watch the news. I really don't know anything that's going on except for what I see on social media. So I cannot speak intelligently about this topic.
Well, social media is the news these days.
And it's not to me because I don't.
Your president came from social media, so
not to me. So I don't believe half of what I see or hear on there. So I can't really take it serious.
Okay. So next month I have 20 years government time, federal government time. I agree with some very minimal of the, I wouldn't call it changes, just decisions being made from up top.
Mm-hmm.
Because in every agency, every department, you look, some changes need to be made. Some things need to be revamped. But the way they're doing it, that's like, you're in education. That's like me coming. I have no background in education. I have education, but I don't have a background in educational leadership.
Mm-hmm.
But that's me coming to your career field, making changes, not knowing what's going on. And that's what's being done. It's like they come in, they want to make all these changes, not realizing how it's going to affect the country, the people at all. And now it's like, oh, a bunch of knee-jerk reaction, like with those layoffs. Now everybody's going back to work, supposedly. So, because in the agency I work in, there's some major things need to be looked at, revamped, scrutinized, but who knows, man? It's just.
So how do you think it should be done? So do you agree that there could be some waste in certain departments and cuts?
Oh yeah, definitely. It's going to be, that's life. There's going to be some waste in everything, but you should do some type of survey, some type of analyzation before you go inside and make a change. That's like, so I'm remodeling a house. I'm just come in and rip out the electrical without knowing the electrical just was replaced last year. So
right.
That's the type of stuff they're doing. Like just come in and just demolishing everything and then trying to start over. That ain't gonna work.
Well, my background, the information that I have on this, Tavonna, I was like you. I quit watching the news. I don't know what your reason was, but when I was teaching, I got tired of seeing my former students on the local news for negative things. It got to the point where it was disheartening. So I stopped watching the local news around 2009 or 10. But I can't remember the exact year, but I know I could easily look it up. There was a push for STEM in public schools, right? Everybody wanted STEM. And some people expanded it to STEAM. They added the A for arts, right? But everybody was pushing STEM. So I went to a workshop, Kennesaw, and I forgot her position. I was thoroughly impressed, but there was a black female that was like the head of Lockheed Martin. And Tank, you may know a little more about this with your military background. From what I gathered was we want to get STEM in the schools so that we can kind of start creating the next generation of engineers now. Because if kids don't have that background in high school, it's going to be too much of a challenge for them when they get to college. And because Lockheed Martin creates our military fighter jets, those blueprints and everything that goes into it has to be protected so they cannot hire foreign nationals. And she's like, those are the kids that are coming here getting degrees in engineering are foreigners. And imagine them getting the blueprints to our technology, military technology, right? So I'm like, okay, cool. So there were 50 educators invited to visit the Savannah River nuclear site. We had to fill out this application. Why? How do we plan to implement our instruction? Blah, blah, blah. It's supposed to be this intense, my application. Luckily, I got invited. I made it in the 50, 25 math, 25 science teachers. So when we went there, the Savannah River nuclear site in Allendale, Berkeley, Aiken County is a huge site. It touches 3 counties. From what I learned was, we made these bombs for World War II, right? The bombs ended up being like 100 times more powerful than they anticipated. So that's why like nuclear weapons were banned. It was too devastating. The first one they dropped immediately killed like 75,000 people as soon as it hit and killed, I forgot how many more. So we were stuck with all this nuclear waste that we're trying to find some way to convert it to energy, thermal energy, and make electricity. So at the Savannah River site, they were like, well, hey, there's a process where they convert this nuclear waste to sludge. The sludge is pelletized. They put in these steel rods. They're taken to these plants, and then it becomes electricity. And I don't know if you all remember being in South Carolina some years ago when something was going on with SCE&G, and they charge you all a few more dollars, and they're like, to get this plant going, and then the electricity rate was supposed to be lowered. Long story short, they were like, hey, we're going to create enough electricity to power the entire state for 14 years off of this little bit of nuclear waste. Well, remember, and this can be verified, the same thing that Donald Trump is doing, President Obama did the exact same thing. Obama came out to the Savannah River site. They did a progress monitoring. He said, hey, look, you guys are 8 years behind schedule and about between 12 to $30 billion over budget. And I'm telling you, when people make jokes about government waste, we were there and witnessed where it took 5 people to change a light bulb. Literally, because everyone has a different role in government. Like the person who delivers the equipment, one guy in a truck came out to deliver a step ladder, right? Another person came out to deliver the light bulb. A different technician had to come out, use the ladder, and remove the light bulb and put it somewhere. A 4th person installed it, and a 5th person disposed of everything and did the cleanup. And that's literally how it was. Like we saw this 5 different people to change a light bulb. But when Obama saw, Obama was like, no. We're wasting too much money. We have X number of people earning more than $100,000 per year. And all this can be verified. There's also an EEOC lawsuit where the minority workers were overlooked for actual engineering positions. The minority workers had degrees in engineering and related fields, but they were the ones changing light bulbs, right? And there were guys out there who had no degrees, some had no high school diplomas, and they were managers in nuclear engineering field. So of course they settled. All they did was pay the minority guys $300,000 and let them, continue working through retirement. But Obama did the exact same thing. And if you look up, if you get a second, just do a Google search for Governor Nikki Haley sues Obama administration. And you'll see why. Obama did the exact same thing. He said, look, it's too much waste going on. But like what you said, Tank, come in and do an assessment first. But he literally had the numbers to support his cuts. And this is what we have to do. We got to cut this out. This isn't getting done. And if you guys are aware, a couple years later, the project never came to fruition. In fact, the stuff was supposed to get sent up to the electrical plant up in Fairfield. And I think they ended up shutting that down. So this stuff never happened. Years and years wasted, billions of dollars wasted, and the freaking electricity bill is even higher now. So are we really concerned about waste and jobs? And why are people changing their views based on who's president? Because if you're a conservative and you're about waste, you would be that way no matter who's the president or who's finding it or who's trying to cut it. And of course now the same thing, but I guess it doesn't look as valid because Elon has no background in government. He has no, I guess, official role with our government. But can we agree that there is waste? And how do we correct it? I want to hear what you think about that, Tank. What do we do? What should we do? How should we do it?
Like you said, first thing got to be assessed by the proper individuals, not just me assessing education on me assessing, I don't know, something I don't know nothing about. So you got to get some subject matter experts to do the proper assessments first. And that's not being done.
Well, do you really need a subject matter expert to realize that there's 5 different jobs that go into changing a light bulb?
Yeah. Yeah. In a sense.
No, I don't think you do. I think that's crazy to me because you can definitely cut out some of that. Like, that's insane. Like, why do you need all of that? That doesn't make any sense.
Hey,
Why is one person doing each position, each job?
So you really need somebody to come pick up a step ladder? So the person that was bringing the light bulb or had the light bulb in their
When I said a
hand,
subject matter expert, that's in totality, not just every little nick and detail. Because that take years to figure all those small little details out.
I mean, yeah, I guess. I think that there, like Coach Sean said, definitely a lot of this stuff was already going on, but because of the propaganda and what they've made it out to be, and don't nobody like 47, now it's just a big deal. But wasn't nobody having these issues when it was being done under
right.
Obama. But my thing is, and I think it's just the simple fact of the brashness, I think, of 47 and his crew that people really don't like. It's more of not the message, the messenger, right? It's just the brashness of it. Oh, we cut it right now.
No. Okay. So when you go into a medical facility and you cancel contracts that take care of the waste, take care of the sterilization of the instruments, yeah, there's a problem there. Those are the contracts being cut out that people aren't talking about. You have a hospital that you're canceling the contracts to dispose of biohazard waste, sterilization of the instruments that's used for operations and, stuff like that goes into your body. Come on now.
And I agree. I think that they should do an assessment, but like Tavonna's saying, I think we all agree that there is a lot of waste, right?
I agree.
And I found the article. There are several articles. It starts back in 2014. You can search one that says SC sues to save MOX plant. And this was like a mixed oxide something project, right? And it's the MOX facility. All these people working for the MOX project, MOX facility. And this kid was there talking to me. And I'm like, so what do you do? He's like, well, my dad used to work for the SRS. We found out about the MOX project. So his dad retired from the government side with the Department of Energy, worked as a contractor with the MOX facility, doubled his salary, hired his son, and the kid was fresh out of high school. He told me he was attending Aiken Tech or Augusta Tech. I know it was.
But we mad at LeBron.
Hey, that's what I keep telling folks, man.
But we mad at LeBron.
And this kid, new little young boy, man. And, these guys were opening up with me talking about, how they've been there for X number of years, what they've been doing. And this guy hired his son, kid was 19 years old, making 105 or 112. I know he was making over 100,000 a year at 19.
Nepotism is not new. I don't know why everybody's liking this is a thing.
It's not.
Nepotism is what has made the world go round. And nepotism has been here from the beginning. Nepotism was involved in slavery. Nepotism was involved in everything that has happened since the creation of this world. It's passing down what you have to your seeds, having and keeping it all in your family. That to me just makes good sense. And people are only mad about it
do it.
when they don't, when they want to have something to talk about. You know what I'm saying? But that's normal.
Now I want them to look at something else. This is something that I was like, people just get manipulated into what they should be upset and angry over, right? That was 2014. 2016, Governor Haley asked the prosecutors to sue feds over the Marks Project again because she set a deadline. She was like, well, if you guys are saying that this is a waste, then you need to get rid of all of this plutonium by a certain date, right? Now, remember, and again, it just flip flops. Remember, Hillary Clinton was being accused of being in bed with Russia. Hillary Clinton was being accused of selling all of our plutonium to Russia. And there are articles, Russia suspends nuclear deal after Obama scraps the agreement, which they're like, well, how do we transport all of this plutonium? Plutonium, of course, is very dangerous, right? How do we get rid of it then? If you're scrapping this project, what do we do with the plutonium? How do we get rid of it? What should we do? So at the time, Hillary was Secretary of State. She said, well, we can get the Russians to buy it. We just have to get it in tanks, put it on ships or whatever. They'll send the ships over and we get rid of it. That deal didn't go through. They're supposed to take it out to the desert and bury it. But then how do you transport plutonium by train from South Carolina to a desert in Arizona? What if the train wreck occurs? How many people are at risk? So all of the things that were done 10 years ago, between 2014 and 2016, one party was okay with it. The Republicans hated it and wanted to sue the Department of Energy and the federal government. Again, Tank, who started the whole green energy, fuel efficient vehicles, hybrid vehicles, implementing the guzzler tax and all that? Remember that was an Obama thing? He also gave Elon Musk a $465 million loan to get started with the manufacturing these electronic vehicles. And now all of a sudden,
we forget.
Right, how soon we forget. And now all of a sudden, everybody's mad at Elon because Elon pulled up with Trump. And again, hey, there's waste. Recently, I read an article that talked about the waste in Richmond County schools, right? That's Augusta, Georgia, the public school system there. They have a magnet school that's ranked among the top 5 in the country, right? Typically top 3. But they also have 4 schools that are in the bottom 13 in the entire country. And local politicians are saying, why do we have 70 people in this school district who earn more than $100,000 a year, but we have 4 of the lowest performing schools in the country? So from a state level or federal level, I think that you can find waste, and like you said, Tank, even in education, and I'll say it, there are a lot of positions that are needed, but there are a lot of positions that are like used as favors for friends. Like, oh, they've been here for this number of years. They've earned it. We just put them there. When they talk about duties and responsibilities, they have the roles, but they don't do it. They delegate to everyone else throughout the organization, and people just sit around and collect money, man. It happens. It happens. It happens all over. But again, how do we fix it? And so, Tavonna, what would you do? You're brought in to, and this just as a citizen, right? You agree it's a waste to have 5 people doing something that minute, right? What do you implement? And we're trying to put you under pressure in the hot seat, thinking under fire. What do you change? Because they're going to be like, well, ma'am, all of the ladders are over in the warehouse. That guy works in the warehouse. That's a different department. So we wait around on calls whenever somebody needs equipment in the warehouse. People deliver ladders and things like that. So tell me, what do you change, Tavonna?
It don't take 5 people to do nothing. So you cut 4. That's the way I look at it. That's crazy to me. I think that's just insane. That's like me saying, okay, I need gas in my car. So I need somebody to open my garage. Then I need somebody to hit the doot the doot on the car to unlock it. And I need somebody else to drive to the gas station. But then I need somebody to actually pump the gas. Really? Like, you see what I'm saying? Like, that makes no sense. Like, for what? How? Well, it don't take all of that. One person can do that. Say you go to the warehouse and get the ladder, get everything you need, bring it back over here. Like, but and then here's the crazier part to me is that you have stuff like that where five people doing one thing, but then on the flip side of that, you got one person doing five things and don't get paid for it. You see what I'm saying? You got some
Who get upset about it.
duties as deemed necessary. You see what I'm saying? You know, they put that little thing in there so that way they can get you to do more stuff and not have to pay you for it. So in some things, you got too many people doing one thing, and then on the flip side, you paying all of them all of this money to do that. But then over here, you got this one person that's burnt out making $40,000 a year doing the job of three people. How does that make sense?
I agree. So what do we think? So what the president has going on, so we agree that it's not bad to say, okay, we're making cuts or cuts need to be made. It's just that is it like too all of a sudden we need a better process?
Yeah, I think it's too all of a sudden. It's the brashness. It's the we gonna do it right now. It's the we don't care who like it or don't like it. You see what I'm saying? See, I think what it is in this society,
Mm-hmm.
people can't deal with they want spoon feed. They want, oh, let me just act like it ain't really happening. So give it to me little by little. But if you just throw it out there at them, oh my God, everybody's gonna go crazy. You know what I'm saying? If this was something that was gradual over time, let's just say you're gonna fire 1,400 people, right? You're
Mm-hmm.
gonna fire 1,400 people. If you did it 100 people over a 14-month period, nobody would bat an eyelash. Still
Right.
1,400 people gotta go,
Right.
right? What's the difference? And I think that me personally, I think that's the problem. It's the brashness of it. It's we don't really care. We're doing it, right? You know what I'm saying? That people don't like. I think if it was something that was a little more palatable, that it wasn't so in their face, then it would just be like, okay, everything else. It's like, all right, get it. We cool. We cool. But I mean, that's just what I think. I just think that, and I think it has everything to do with the messenger. Like,
Right.
until this whole thing happened, ain't nobody had nothing bad to say about Elon Musk.
No
Y'all
much.
was buying
Right.
Teslas and all kind of stuff left and right. Y'all love this man. So now all of a sudden, and again, that to me, that just goes to show the weirdness of people because you upset with this man because who he has attached himself to over the past, couple years, but all before you ain't had an issue with him. So what? So what now? So
Yeah.
why now? Because he's attached himself to somebody else you don't like? Like, come on, we're playing High School Musical. I mean, what is that? That's weird. Like,
Yeah. And he's just doing his job. In my opinion, he's doing his job.
this
Um.
man is a multi-gazillionaire and got more money than Jesus. And you think he care what you think? He don't. And you still out here buying his cars. He still got his hand in stuff that you probably deal with and use in your everyday life. You know
And
what I'm
don't know about.
saying?
Right.
Yeah. So come on. Like, to me, it's just this weird. I can't stand selective outrage. It's kind of annoying to me. It always has been. And it's like, oh, what we gonna be wake up and be mad about and gripe about today?
Today.
But
Oh
you
no.
ain't
What are
doing
we going to be
nothing.
told to be mad about
Thank you. And gripe about
and
today.
gripe about?
And this is why I don't watch the news because I don't like I like to answer what you were saying before. I stopped watching the news back in 2008 because I was tired of seeing my offenders on the news and I got to get up out my bed at 12 o'clock in the morning and go write warrants. So I was like, listen, if I can
Mm.
see it, I can wait till 8:30. So that's why I stopped watching the news.
Right.
And it
I
was just
forgot
a
you were the
bunch
popo.
of, and I was like, it's sad. To me, the news is the biggest contributor to PTSD in this nation. Because if you watch the news, you have PTSD on.
Yeah, it messes them up. It does mess people up. It has them so stressed out and they use a scare tactic. People are afraid of something that they literally supported a week ago. So Tank, I want to hear your suggestions on how can we fix this. If you're here, oh, welcome. Sari, welcome. Miss Shanta, welcome. Shaheen, welcome. Robin, welcome. Feel free to join in. If you all do not like to talk, you can type in your comments, questions, or concerns. Tank, are you still here with us? I think they were having a little technical difficulty, and we're going to continue. And just talking about, what we've been saying. There are some other things that related to this that took place in the past. Of course, for people who remember, back to the Clinton administration, it was the same way. Clinton came around. Hey, I need to balance the budget. There are some things we need to get done. And in his first presidency, one of the things that he did was they shut down a lot of bases, naval bases. They said that it was a waste. Again, and it all ties back to, the wars. It was like, hey, we have all these ships in Charleston at the naval base. We have thousands of employees. I think altogether with civilian and military, it was about 15,000, between 12 to 15,000 employees that were displaced or laid off as a result of the base closing. And of course, if you take 15,000 people, out of an area, obviously it's going to affect the entire area. It's going to have an impact on local stores, gas stations, apartment complexes, like everything that these people contribute money to is going to change. But we didn't have that outrage. Well, people in Charleston were outraged. They were upset at that time. But now, of course, we now have social media. We have access to the internet and other things. So it's like everybody's upset. Everybody's mad. Everybody's mad. And they're mad because it's Elon Musk, not mad because of what has been going on. And again, I know this is a topic that some of us may not have given a lot of thought to, but it's something that I feel like we should discuss. Just to enlighten others, to have a better idea and understanding of what's going on and why everybody is in such an outrage. And again, it's never a good thing when people are losing their jobs. That's never a good thing. But also we need to understand why this is happening. And the fact that it's nothing new. This has been going on forever. Every administration, they find ways to reduce the budget, Tank, are you here with us? I think we lost Tavonna. And at this time, I don't even know if my listeners can hear me. Can you all hear me? Okay, welcome back, everyone. And we have our co-host, Nicole. We're discussing the, layoffs, restraints, and basically the advantages and disadvantages of workforce reductions, and budgetary constraints. So, reducing the workforce, if you try hard enough on just about any job, you can find a way to reduce a position or consolidate a position to say, you know what, we really don't need that person. The 2 or 3 things that they do, we can divide that among a few others and get it done. Or, hey, we don't have this amount in our budget, so we have to find other ways of getting it done. And those are supposed to be the primary reasons behind workforce reductions. But I want to know, how do you feel about the situation, Nicole? What do you have to share with us about that?
Well, I work for the government, and right now, I think the disadvantages is outweighing the advantages. The disadvantage is we were at home actually since COVID and very productive. Some of the workers were actually more productive home than actually having to travel to the office. Now we have folks that pretty much coming back into the office, and we don't have the accommodation, or they were it was never any space to accommodate them. And it just makes the ones that's been there, when everything was running smooth, it just makes the morale, so low that you really don't want to be a part of the government anymore. Also, we have like 5 things we have to report every Monday morning. Okay. Been on this job 5, 10 years, doing the same job, doing it well. You have your yearly performance. And now every Monday, you're having to say what you do every week. Well, I do the same thing every week. It's like a test up for a child. Like, the work it was being done, it's being done, is in your job description. So it's just the low tedious, it just seems like it's tedious, nitpicking, questioning, looking for any hiccups to say, okay, now your computer's not working. You no longer have a job. Even with the probationary, we had some probationary employees. They've been there for 19, 20 years. They transferred to a different position. When you transfer to a different position, you're now considered a probationary worker for that position, but you've been with the government 19, 20 years, which you don't feel like you should be in no kind of probationary, period. But that's what's going on. The advantage, I don't see any advantage to it. The overall benefit package, the work that we do, it's just a lot involved, but I don't see any advantages to it because it's just like your whole world has been disrupted for 1 or 2 people just finding ways and just listening to the news and things like that. Cutting employees is not really even the key. From what I showed on a study, is like all of the folks that has been laid off or let go doesn't even account for 40% of what the budget looks like. Dismantling these people from their jobs, and they're really not making a dent. The reason is, why are you even letting them go?
And how are they justifying it? What are they saying?
Unproductive, really no answers. We don't get any answers. We haven't been getting any answers from the beginning. And that's what's so confusing to people who's been in the military, even the civilian force for 30, 40 years. Is like, there's no reasoning for what's taking place except to save, but it's really no savings in the overall picture. And like my building, we really can't afford to lose anybody because a couple years ago they did like what's called a RIF, a reduction in force. And so what they did, they cut staff tremendously.
It's a little better. It's still not as clear as it was.
Well, go ahead.
So pretty much everybody in my building that's there, they're accounted for, and these.
I got truck in the background.
Now, are you using the exact same phone you were using the very first run through?
Is that you, Nicole?
No, I don't even know where.
All I know is you made it.
I don't even know where this is coming from. This is somebody else's whole conversation.
Lies. You can't. No, yeah. That's for the noodles.
Can everybody hear that?
Yeah, correctly.
I can hear it also.
Okay, let me hang up and call back.
What I need.
Sorry about the technical difficulties that we had. I would really like to hear some more about what Nicole has been discussing. Because she works in the field, and she made a good point about people coming out. I guess everyone was working remote since COVID. And now that that's over, having people to come back, you're going to have some costs associated with that as well.
I'm back. I'm sorry about that. I don't know what took place.
Okay. Yes. So now you made a good point, Nicole, when you said people were working remotely during COVID. Now that they're back in the office, so I'm sure there are a lot of increased costs like custodial work, utility bills. With how many people do you think work in your building or area?
I think
You went out again.
we had maybe about 200, and after this whole telework issue has come back into place, I think it's now maybe like 325. We're even trying to accommodate people who doesn't even belong to our building, but works for the government that needs a building to come into.
Oh, so he ordered all government employees to go back to work.
Pretty much all except the union. Everybody who's attached to the union.
Hmm.
I'm attached to the union. I haven't been permanently back. I'm not permanently back in the office. I still have my my telework days and my RDO days, my days off,
Okay.
my regular days off. So it's really no advantage. It's an advantage to be a union worker because we fall under the collective bargaining unit, and he pretty much can't touch. He can't. The union is doing everything to try to support all their members as much as possible. So that's the only grace. We don't know if something is going to change in the news. The union is up there every week fighting for something. I think right now they're fighting for TSA. So it's just a lot going on, and there's no rhyme or reason behind it. You know, bringing somebody in the office versus them working at home. Was the work not getting done? That's not the issue. It's just like a control issue of anything. You know, you're very unproductive. How am I so unproductive? Everything is being done.
Right.
And there is some unproductive workers, but I mean, granted, I mean that's in any entity. There's like, for instance, I'm an auditor. We have a person that was given the position of an auditor that doesn't do audit. She runs the manager's report. How is that fair to the two audit to me and my coworker? It's not fair at all. So I'm trying to figure out. They wanted me to share what I do. My 5 things, they wanted me to share it. No, I'm not sharing it because I don't know. This other person doesn't do the same thing I do. She doesn't have any doctors or anything assigned to her. So what do she do to have the title? She doesn't do anything. She's a friend of a friend of a friend. So there is there's some unproductive things that is actually going on, but the accommodation of what is taking place is actually affecting more people that's productive than those that's unproductive.
Unproductive. I get it. So what do you think? If you had to come up with a solution right now, you know, you're not in charge, but if you had to come up with a solution, what would it be?
Leave it as it was. If you want to streamline, okay, let's do a reduction in force based on folks that has positions that's really not doing their work.
Okay.
And granted, there is people that's in the office that has positions that's really not doing their work. And what I found so much. I'm not knocking on the elderly, but my mom is almost 70 years old. I see people in positions 79, 80 years old. It needs to be a cap. It really needs to be a cap so younger people can come in. But because the way it's set up, you know, the work is the work. The work doesn't change. People have gotten seasoned in these positions. I feel like a couple of them really need to be forced out.
So you think there should be a age cap? What age do you think?
No, I feel like once you've done about 25, no more than 30 years, you should be retired.
So then that leads back to, do we have the people qualified to do these jobs?
We do, but because the position is not open, nobody can't refill it because the older ones, they don't want to move.
So they just stay in.
They just stay, collect the money.
So job pretty easy. It is an easy job that they like, well, you know what? I can just keep doing it. I've been doing it.
It's easy because they've been doing the same thing. Like my work, I probably can do my work sleeping. The only thing it requires reading individual charts, but I mean, it takes a skill to do it, but doing it 20, 30 years, it's like, okay.
I can kind of understand why some people are like, you know what? Hey, I'm not leaving.
Right. That's what it is. And that's what we face. There's a position that I have been watching that I know I can do, but the person isn't leaving and they find every excuse and pretty much want help with you doing their job, stuff like that. So
again, what do we do? What's the workaround? You said you think we should put a cap to say 30 years federal government, you retire. They're forced to retire, right? Can they come back and work in a different position? Would you support that? You went out again. Hey, Tamara, welcome in. Hey,
Thank you for,
Tamara, how are you?
I'm fine. Thank you for having me.
Yes, we are discussing today. We're talking about basically advantages and disadvantages of workforce reductions, and budgetary restraints from the perspective of a federal government employee.
Okay.
Like, how do you feel about that?
I'm going to have to, since I just joined, kind of get back in, like, get a feel for it. But being forced into any type of early retirement I feel, I don't use the word detrimental, but, as far as your plans and things you already have planned out in life, it's just, it's jarring,
Right. Is everyone ready to retire? Are you at that age? Have you acquired the things you want to acquire or accomplished what you want to accomplish? If you had a later start in life, are you now, paying for tuition?
I'm currently not. I know just by looking at my retirement portfolio and my IRA and my Roth, no, I'm definitely not ready to retire, but I plan to be retired at least by 58. So if I was in a position where I was forced into early retirement, I would have to get a job elsewhere or maybe even start a new career.
Mm.
Hmm. Yes.
So, well, you have a good point. We're just thinking about solutions to this because are you aware of everything that's going on right now with, the budget cuts and changes to, numbers in the workforce and things like that?
Unfortunately, yes. And then, of course, everything also just going on with the state of all the changes in our government. Department of Education, for me as an educator, that's one of the biggest concerns I have. And of course, cutting with our
I
DIE.
want to hear how you feel about that.
Hopefully I'm not going to ruffle any feathers, but I do feel that we do need a federal state Department of Education, because not only does that feed into our local governments per se, if you're talking about what we have here in the state of South Carolina with our Department of Education, giving them guidelines and such, it also helps with our programs. Like right now I have to go back and I've just started a new position, so I need to get some certifications with multilingual learners or with ESOL, and I'm looking at grants and programs and are well, right now we cannot, I'm getting all these roadblocks already as far as saying, well, I want to go ahead and apply for this, this grant or, some type of federal funding assistance as someone who's had their student loan paid off. And I'm just reading roadblocks because right now everything's just on hold because of former 45 now, 47, just holding things up, trying to make a point. So I feel with the Department of Education, we do need that. It may not be perfect. I mean, as far as we have some states that are far and ahead at number one in our nation, and unfortunately we fall to the end. And I don't think that has anything to do with the federal government. I think that's more here on a state level.
Okay. So what are the benefits of having the U.S. Department of Education?
Having the U.S. Department of Education, I feel gives us guidelines in regards to whenever we try to make certain changes in our educational system, whether it may be getting rid of all our state testing, maybe, that's done at a state level, more at a federal level, just even if it comes with guidelines for our standards, certain requirements that we have for our teachers, our national board program, things like that, which we will definitely, people would lose their national board funding with the money that they've earned from getting that certification. Programs such as that. And I know there's a lot more, but just because I'm just being put right here on the spot, my brain's not clearly thinking right now. But I do feel that the Department of Education is beneficial. And to me, it was don't, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Some feel that it is broken, but our programs that we have, especially our 504, our IEP programs, our multilingual programs that we have, all those things are federally funded. My job is federally funded.
Right.
So it's one of those things. If you're going to cut that and we're minimizing and then we're at a state level, I don't really think right now how things are going with us being a red state that they really give a care about our students that are here from other countries that need help learning English, or programs that will benefit our kids. Maybe if they have behavioral issues, things that we know that the federal laws and, amendments have been put in place to protect our children or protect our teachers. Those would possibly be obsolete.
Mike, and I've always asked what would change, like what would happen if we did not have the U.S. Department of Education, right? Like how would that impact us? What would be the immediate concerns? And so you brought about testing policies. Let's see what else.
Protection that will be lied in for even like our things that we have federally funded, like we said, kids that are in special programs that are needed, whether it's for behavior, emotional needs, it may be language barriers, things such as that are federally funded.
Mm.
I mean, we just I'm looking at the state of South Carolina and the fact that we still have schools that would be considered parts of the corridor of shame. And this is 2024, and we've known about the corridor of shame for decades now, and not much has improved.
Right.
And a
How do
lot
we
of the
fix that?
schools get funds from federal funds. Like, it's not coming from the state.
I think that Governor Haley tried to combat that, in my opinion, because she felt like, and for the listeners who's not aware of what the corridor of shame is, it's the, where does it begin? In Florence?
It starts in Florence.
And it goes down the entire Interstate I-95 down to, what is it, Estill and all these other places?
Yes, King Street, those areas, yes.
So she felt like this corridor of shame, you needed industry, was what she felt like. We needed more industry. So I know that during her governorship, she allocated like some fund for people willing to open businesses, for anyone interested in opening businesses in the area during that time.
Yeah.
What else? One of the other things that she did was,
She also had other, was able to tap out to certain businesses as far as like corporations that were willing to donate certain things. So some schools, even though they may not have one-on-one where each kid had a device, they were able to Wi-Fi. They were able to get like access for students to have a computer lab in their school. Books that they may have had that were old library books or that were water damaged or had mold, things like that were taken care of in the schools for the most part.
Right.
But not many new schools were built. Some high schools were built, but it weren't like it was more like updates and such that were done. So yeah, she did try. But I just feel like at a state level, she made some more moves. Now, individually, if you have a state department of education and you in the federal and you give out the mandates that yes, schools should be to a certain level, you think as a state you want to supersede those, the basic that's out there. And I just feel like with South Carolina, whether the funds have been either misappropriated or just mishandled, for lack of a better word, it's not reflective of saying, well, we need to get rid of the Department of Education on a federal level, let all the states kind of run how they want to, and then we're really going to see where we are at a huge deficit or in consideration to maybe like our schools that we have in Pennsylvania or in California, or even if we want to go Wisconsin. And it's something that I feel that if we lose at least having some type of authoritative guideline that we have on a federal level, it's just all going to crumble apart.
So do you have confidence in your state legislator to be able to develop a plan to make sure that your state is sustainable? And, one of the reasons the U.S. Department of Education and the whole idea of having like what we called Common Core that started back in 1893.
Okay.
And this was something that was created by I think it was called a committee of 10. You can just verify the information. I think it was the committee of 10, and it consisted of 10, 10 high school. Well, there were a few high school principals.
Okay.
There were high school principals. There were a few superintendents. There are high school principals, a few superintendents, and like 10 people in total. And they decided that they would determine like
Wow.
common standards. Like each state, of course you have I think like eighth grade, each state gets their own state history.
Yeah.
And then,
Like in South Carolina, we have South Carolina history actually, and the kids get it in third grade and they get it again in eighth grade.
in eighth grade, right. So things like that, they can choose. But as far as a common, like, okay, what are the subjects that we're going to teach our kids, right? What subjects should our kids have? What should our kids know, right? That are universal. Because you have people that are like, hey, the kids that are coming from this place, they know XYZ. The kids that are coming from these states, they really don't. So how do we fix that?
It's going to always be a deficit in the gap if we don't have a universal system as far as like in place, and say universal and national as far as having that. I mean, we have kids that come to us from a different district. I'm in District 2, and I have kids that may be coming from Lexington 5 or Rich in District 1 when I was a Spanish teacher. And I'm just like, we literally have the same state curriculum, but we have teachers teaching different things or just kind of teaching off the cuff. So I honestly don't know. There's a good way of saying that we can have a perfected system or something's even close to it. But I still feel that having the Department of Education, who's developed these things and put these guidelines for us in place, is helpful. And even think about, like, if we want to go all the way back to Ruby Bridges, if we didn't have federal states, like things like certain kind of guidelines and tact are in place, who knows what would have happened? We still have the fact that we have our amendments, even though that's trying to be changed, things that we have in our Constitution that do protect us and do guidelines as far as protecting even for the freedom of learning, freedom of speech, things like that are being challenged at this particular time. And just kind of going off a little bit, I just read an article about a teacher that had a poster in her classroom that said everyone is welcome. And it had like, hands up with different color hands showing, of course, cultural diversity. And she was told to take that poster down out of her classroom because that was her own personal thinking, her own feelings that everyone was welcome in her classroom. Not everyone has that opinion, it was told that every child would be welcome.
You're
So
supposed to separate
church and state.
church and state, right? Do you agree with that?
Oh, yes, I do.
Okay.
110%. Even like with our kids, when we have a lot of children that don't do the Pledge of Allegiance,
Mm-hmm.
and I told them at one point, I was like, you don't want to stand, I get that, but let's at least, I would tell them not to talk, of course. And some kids refuse to stand. So afterwards, I told them, you don't have to stand. If you want to take a knee, feel free to take a knee, because I have kids that would do that as well. But I do not want you talking, because of course that is our Pledge of Allegiance for, our country. But as far as like the moment of silence and things like that, I feel that is, an observance of people who may want to pray in the morning and things such as that. So to me, also kids need to be quiet during that time and be respectful. But as far as us having to teach certain biblical things or being told that we cannot talk about certain topics that are maybe even in our curriculum now, they're going and taking things out or planning to take things out. It's ridiculous in my opinion.
You're getting to it. Let's see. What approach should we take on this? So who should decide those things? Like what should be included in your curriculum beyond the four core subjects?
I mean, put it as we want to say it, true African American studies. These kids should be getting this from the beginning, like true African American studies. We need women's history as well. We need Native American history. I think everyone,
Mandatory or as an elective?
I feel mandatory. It should be in these books that we're doing all these huge textbooks adoptions. They did one for social studies 2 years ago. We're doing one for math now. Of course, with math, maybe they want to put in some cultural things in there, but I'm just saying it should be a part of it because it's mandatory that we learn about other subjects and other things. I just had like a big discussion with someone the other day about slaves and how slaves actually in the South they were blacks that owned slaves. And I was adamant. I was like, there's no way in this world, there's no way at all that blacks own slaves. And I was like really upset about it. Cause I'm like, you're in the South. Wait, where are you going to be owning slaves? And this is something that had I done, like I had to actually reach out to someone and like get information and that person was correct. It wasn't like a lot of people that owned slaves, that blacks owned slaves, but they were blacks in the South that actually did own slaves. And that was on me not having that. Like I did the majority of my education, all of it here in the state of South Carolina, and like that was something that was never taught. And I also, on my own, have never taken a separate like African American studies class. I've taken like kind of history, I've taken women's history, but I haven't done it just like on African American studies. And that's on me. But to me, that should be something that is like never should even been up for me as a debate as a woman in my late 40s going, oh, that's not true. I should have known that was right.
Right.
Be able to have a stance as a woman of color to be like, yeah, it was wrong, such and such, but like not thrown at me like, and this is fact and this is truth. And I'm like, no, it's not.
Because it just seems illogical, right?
It seems extremely. We're in the South.
But if you think about the time that this occurred, it wasn't when it was like basically when it was supposed to be abolished. And let's just think about this for a second. Slavery was equivalent to being incarcerated in prison right now.
Yes.
So when people get out of prison, what do they do on day one?
The first thing, I'm assuming, even though I've never been in prison, you want to go ahead and get back to your people, maybe go get a good meal.
Right. And then, well, what are their goals? What are some things that they need to make a priority?
To the level of where I was before and looking like where things are in society. And I want to be like how others are.
All right. Now you do this with no job, no formal education, no transportation. What do?
Well, if that's the case, unfortunately, you may have to revert back to a way of how you got it maybe in jail the first place by either breaking the law or bending it. Does that make sense? I don't know. I've never been in that particular situation, but is that maybe applicable?
I don't think you should ever go back to doing the same thing because that's going to have the same result.
Think about this for a minute. If you have, and I use that scenario, right? So think about slaves. All right, now slavery is abolished, right?
Yes.
What do? Where do you go?
That's all they know.
And how do you get there?
He has nowhere to go.
So you see now how it becomes in a different perspective to where people are now thinking, where am I going? Right?
Right.
None of the resources that we have today, no form of transportation, no formal education. These people cannot read or write. All they've done was work for someone else, and the people that they worked for fed them, gave them some shacks to live in, but that was their shelter. So if I decide now that I want to leave, how do I get there? Where do I go? Which direction do I go? Where am I going? I heard about people traveling north. I heard about it, but from South Carolina to New York is how many miles? And how am I going to travel 800 to 1,000 miles to go north? Do I just leave and abandon my family if I'm an able-bodied male? What do I do? My wife is pregnant now. I have a newborn when they abolish this stuff. Where do I go? And in some instances, I'm not a historian to say, okay, this is exactly how it was, but I read a lot about these things. And there were some people who had resources that provided something. But if you have thousands and thousands of people that were recently freed, right?
Yeah.
You can't house all of them. But if you did own some property and you're able to provide some shelter, can you afford to feed and house them for free?
No.
And that's so for how long? So now what do they have to do?
You're gonna have to work.
They're going to have to work, and they're going to have to work on your farm. That's the only source of income. That's the only means during that time. And again, I'm not a historian, but I love documentaries. Like I binge watch documentaries. I have a alarm set. I get up at 3:30 every morning and watch a documentary. And it's amazing and fascinating the things that went on. Like these are documented. They have photos and like just different things that occurred during that time. And I never thought about it in that perspective. Like, man, imagine being a slave and now slavery is over. You're told you're free. Well, your master calls you all up to the big house, say, we got these orders. You know, the ones that honored that and said, hey, you got your orders.
Follow that federal law.
Yeah, it's a federal law. Y'all are free. You know how many people are like, Master, well, I don't have no place to go. Where am I going? So, and again, there were some blacks that actually owned properties and had some things and had means of providing for themselves. And they did take some people in and they became servants. You know, they worked for African Americans. Another part that's often overlooked is there were a lot of immigrant slaves as well from different countries. So during that time, what they called indentured servants, if you were in prison somewhere else, you can work that off by traveling to do some work. And this is, like you said, this was something that I learned working in a district. I was in a curriculum department and we had to learn different parts, our history and different things about the curriculum, right? And I'd never heard this before, that even Asians that were serving, right? They were sent here to work their time off as engineers. And of course, during times of war, these Asians built canals in the U.S. They built the Augusta Canal, and according to what's written in history, the Augusta Canal was the first hydroelectric power source, and it powered all of the mills in Augusta. These historic spots are still, they've been renovated. The canal is still there, but these mills were used to make linen for all the hospitals during the Civil War and attire for all of the nurses for the what's known now as the VA hospital. But I was like, wow, these people actually came here and had to pay this off, you know, and not to discredit any of the accounts that were told about slavery. It's just that there was a lot more going on, a lot of moving parts.
Oh yeah.
And like Damon said, they knew nothing else. That's all they knew, right?
But going back to what we were talking about a little bit prior to that, this is things that should have been taught to us when we were learning about South Carolina history. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
That was
It was nice.
Do you expect the South Carolina to teach you that?
Yeah.
Come on, man. You for real?
I think that our kids should know. That was something that I feel that.
That's our responsibility more than.
Yeah, the school. The school wasn't going to do that. If they want, if we want our kids to learn it, we got.
No, this is Ray Clay.
Yeah, we didn't learn any of this in South Carolina history. I took South Carolina history in 7th and 8th grade, and none of the stuff that I should have been taught was taught. None of it was in that book.
So you expect the slave owner to let you know that I used to enslave you? You really expect that?
Right. No, they wasn't going to do that.
No. But I'm saying at this day and time, and we're talking about.
No. You're 40. How old are you?
No.
You see, you're 40 plus, right? Even to today, you expect the person who whipped you to let you know, oh, I used to whip you, if you don't know?
No. Now that's a little bit different. I'm just saying, as far as like, for me, and maybe that's my bad for not going and learning more about it. You know, I did not know that there were blacks that owned slaves here in the South. You did during that time? I did not.
Wow.
We had I was a whole adamant fighting about the throw down, the conversation. And they're like, yes, blacks own slaves. And I was like, I knew in like other countries and stuff, but here in the South, I'm like, for me to understand that, saying that they had slaves. And for when I'm thinking slaves, I'm thinking of like, the typical things I've learned about slavery,
But
whether
women stuff.
with people being physically abused. And, I read, of course, I've read certain things like, with Frederick Douglass and, I've read, but I am not like to say a perfectionist about African American studies. So, my bad on that, but I'm saying
Oh no, you don't have to apologize for
it's
it.
important for us to be able to either have the way to say that I want to teach my students this. My students have the right to know this and be able to freely teach it along with the extra South Carolina, curriculum that is given to us to teach our students.
Right. But again,
But knowledge has always been power, and knowledge has always been the power that they took first, right? So it makes perfect sense that you want to take these things out. You don't want to teach them because the more you know, the better. Correct. So that's why they want to take all these things out. That's why they don't want these things to be taught, because what it's doing is pulling the covers off for the lies that have been being perpetuated for years and decades. You know what I'm saying? So you start teaching this stuff, then now somebody got to actually cop to it. Somebody got to say, oh, okay, yeah, that really did happen. They don't want that. Yeah.
but Tamara, another thing, like you said, is, and you're an educator, right?
I am.
So I know it's like, oh wow, I'm an educator, and I can hear in your tone that you felt like you should have known these things, right? And you said second grade and eighth grade, right? South Carolina history.
Third and eighth, yes.
Third and eighth grade. Okay. I was a assistant superintendent looking over the curriculum, ready to do some adoptions, right? A company sent a textbook out, third grade social studies book. I was grown, had multiple degrees, and found out that in third grade history, I found out about the Yamasee Indians and King Charles, apparently. So I started doing a lot more research and reading up on it. But this is in a third grade social studies book, the Yamasee Indians. And are you all familiar with Yamasee, South Carolina?
Yes.
So
No, I am, because
that's your neck of the woods.
yeah.
Well, when King Charles, we talked about these indentured people, right? So the Europeans that were in prison, those were the people who came here with Christopher Columbus. They weren't like these noble people that were coming here as tourists on the ship. Their jobs, well, in order to get freed out of prison, they had to come and protect Columbus against Muslims. It was all about money. Like if you traded something and you got caught trekking from Europe to India through Northern Africa, if you got caught, they were either robbed or charged a tariff. They say robbed, but people are charging tariffs, right? So
Yes.
Columbus' goal was to find a way around to get to India by ship. And that's how he ended up here and called the people Indians. He thought he made it India, right? But anyway, when he went back and forth, it's like, hey, we ran into some people there, and the people who sponsored his ships, France and Spain, they were like, well, we'll give you some inmates. You can take them with you, and if you guys help him out, you worked your time off. So that's why the first people that came here, the first settlers, were so violent and could murder and slaughter people, because it's like, do I go back to Spain and struggle, or do I just kill these people and I got all this abundance of land or whatever I want? And when King Charles was like, hey, we're just claiming spots. That's why everything along the East Coast has a Charlestown. You got Charleston, South Carolina, Charlestown, Virginia, Charleston Bay in this place. They just claimed it. And he was claiming from Charleston, he wanted from Charleston all the way down to Savannah, Georgia. And the only group that was successful in fighting him off were the Yamasee Indians. So that's why Charleston actually extended to the Yamasee Colleton area. And they fought them off and were able to preserve their property in their area. And I was like, wow. And this stuff was written, and I kept researching it. And I'm like, I never learned that in the third grade. I remember, the map, the 13 colonies, what states came in what order, and the little map puzzle, you had to put everything in order. So again, we run into a challenge of, and this is something else that's funny to me when parents are like, oh, these kids don't go to school like we used to go to school, or they're out all the time. It's so not true. We had 180 days in school, and these kids also go to school for 180 days. And as an educator, Tamara, you know, because, you know, we have to work a certain number of days. But when you only have 180 days and you have a lot of things to cover, as a teacher, what do you focus on?
You focus on what you need, what's going to be tested.
What's going to be tested. And as an elementary teacher, when you're tasked with teaching multiple subjects, how do you allocate that time? People have their area of expertise. You see what I'm saying? Think about it. Tank, what do you like? What's your favorite subject? Tavonna, what's your favorite subject?
History.
History. So if you're an elementary teacher, you probably spend an hour and some change in social studies, right?
Yes.
And how much time are you going to spend in math with these same kids?
Not much.
Well, how much time are you going to spend in science? Spelling. Do you touch spelling every day? Or do you do that on Tuesdays and Thursdays? You know, there's a lot that goes into curriculum design and, you know, time restraints, because these kids have specials as well. The PE teacher wants their time, right? And the kids definitely want it. They have to have lunch. They get recess. They might have PE and music, you know, PE Monday, Wednesday, music Tuesday, Thursday, art on Friday, something like that. So all of these things have to go into place. And then it's like, well, I only have 180 days. How many days do I put for this content? And again, Tamara, that's no excuse to eliminate certain things. But again, that's why we need parents to be actively involved and engaged. I think parents rely too much on the schools. It's like, let me drop them off to you, and when I pick them up, they're going to be geniuses. Not, what can I do to help you? How can I reinforce what you're doing? What should my child read? What should my child be working on? What can I practice at the house? They don't want to do anything like that. It's like, let's drop them off, and my kids are supposed to be geniuses. Yeah, I let them play on their PlayStation until 10:30 on school nights. Yeah, we probably don't have time for breakfast because I'm running late myself. So there are so many factors that go into that on what should be taught. But I like the idea, but tying back to what we said earlier, what Tank and Tavonna talked about, even with talking about the military and budget and finances, we have to have a plan of how we're going to do it, right? Because at the end of the day, the ultimate teacher effectiveness measure is students' performance on standardized tests. So you want to teach them what's going to be on the test. You want to teach them what's going to be on the test. And then, hey, you know what? We can offer women's history as an elective. We can offer African American studies, you know. And we also have to remember that some parents don't want their kids to know it, and some kids might not want to know it, right?
Right.
Because how many of us took extra history classes in college as an elective?
I went to one because it was required, to be honest with you.
Exactly, because it was required. It was required. I took the U.S. history that was required for my degree. For humanities electives, I took philosophy. Liked it so much, I picked it up as a second major. So we can understand why everyone might not be interested in African American studies, you know? And a lot of these things as parents, we can teach our kids. Don't wait on the schools to do it. Let's teach it to our kids.
Well, I also think a lot of the times why a lot of people aren't quote unquote interested is because once you start opening some things up and talking about it and learning it, it kind of, a lot of people don't like to feel like they got duped. You know what I'm saying? With information. You know what I mean? It's like, oh my God, I've been being lied to this whole time. You know what I'm saying? And once you start coming to those realities, it's the same reason why people don't want to look into their ancestry and people don't want to, you know what I mean? Because it's going to make you have to face the undisputable facts. You know what I'm saying? Because you can't do anything with what's the facts. You know what I mean? And as long as, and sometimes ignorance is really bliss for people. They just enjoy not knowing.
Wow.
Something that I learned was, so Tavonna, it was an advantage, you being a military child, but your dad spent most of your time stationed in Beaufort,
I got there when I was in 5th grade.
fifth grade. And
So
see,
yeah,
so you've traveled, you lived in different states, right?
yes,
You were able to adapt, you had to adjust, new friends, new schools, new people.
correct.
You're navigating these spaces, but also your parents are there to tell you, hey, this is how you meet new people, this is what you do, first impressions, how to communicate with teachers. A
Yeah,
lot.
it was definitely a lot of adapting. It was definitely, but it was adapting within a utopia, which is kind of a disadvantage, right? Because when you are in a utopia and to get to your house, there's a man with a gun and a gate to get to your house. That's a little different. People don't live like that for real, right? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so, and like when we were talking, we would say stuff like out in town, like because we had everything we needed on the base. Like we had
Right.
movie theater, bowling alley, grocery store, Pizza Hut, 7-Day store, gas station. So it was like, okay, we had to go out in town. Like if you wanted to go to Walmart or whatever, that's what it was. It was like going out in
See,
town.
this is
Like,
new
you know
to
what I'm
me.
saying? So I lived behind a gate until I was in the 9th grade.
Mm.
So I was 14 when I moved off of a military base. So growing up in a utopia like that is very, very different. Yes, I had to adapt every few years and move around. I didn't move as much as some military kids because my dad was a recruiter. So he was able to stay at duty stations a little longer than, because it depends on your job, how often you have to move. Some people it's every 3 years. Some people can stay at 4 or 5. You know what I'm saying? So my dad was a recruiter. But living in that utopia, once we moved off of the base, it was a culture shock because I didn't know. Like, so I went to DOD schools. Like, I went to a military school behind the gate until 7th grade. I didn't go to public school until 7th grade. And it was a culture shock because now I have to deal with kids that are from out in town who aren't like me, who parents are not in the military, who mamas and daddies work and all. Like, I didn't know about, I had no concept of any of that. Like,
Kids whose parents don't have a car. What do you mean you don't have a place? You don't have your own bed. What?
what?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. No, I didn't know anybody like that. Like, I didn't, and they were mean to us because they felt like we were rich. They felt like we were,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know what I mean? They were very mean to us. And so it was tough. It was a tough adjustment. And that adjustment probably didn't really even out until I got to high school because now I've been around these people for 7th and 8th grade. So they kind of get to know you. You know what I'm saying? And then, okay.
Sports.
Right. Yes. 9th grade now. Okay. Whatever. But it still was still like very limited on because it was still very cliquey. You still had in Beaufort, if you know anything about Beaufort, like most places, there's certain parts of Beaufort. You have Burton, you have Ladies Island, you have St. Helena, you have Grays Hill, you have Seabrook. And so all of these people stick together and you don't fit into any of these groups.
Mm.
So if all the girls from Seabrook are all hanging out, they don't want to hang out with you because you're not from there. Or all the girls from Burton all hang out together. You're not from there either. Like to this day, I'm 45 years old. And when I tell people, they be like, oh, where you from? I be like, I'm Beaufort, I guess. And the first thing they say, well, who your people? I don't have no people in Beaufort because my family is not from there. So even now, it's very still like they want to associate you with who you're from and who you're with and what part of the, county you live in. And I don't have, you know what I'm saying? So it was very, very different, like very different.
Now you think about going back to that. What was a teacher? What was the major difference in instruction? Like the teachers, were most of the teachers like their spouses in the military as well, or are they just
So
local?
in the DOD school, of course, that's a federal job. These people work for the federal government.
Right.
Like, so if you work for the Department of Defense instead of working for Richland County or Beaufort County. The people that pay you is the Department of Defense. So our teachers at the DoD school, in my opinion, were a little different because the curriculum was different. It was done by the federal government. It wasn't done by the county or the state, or you know what I'm saying? So it
It was
was
just a
like
job. They didn't care.
when we were in, let me tell you, when we were in the 6th grade, and I'll never forget this. We had a bank, like the school, like our classroom had a bank. And so you would get, and this is how we learned how to bank. So you would get money, and every Friday, like Monopoly money, and every Friday we were all excited because we got to go to the bank and make deposits and do withdrawals and learn how to balance a checkbook. We learned all that in the 6th grade at a DoD school. I didn't learn anything else about money in public school until I got to government and economics in the 12th grade.
Right.
But we had an entire banking system within the school in the 6th grade. So that just goes to show you that the curriculum was very, very different because we were learning how to manage money. We were learning, you know what I'm saying, all of these things in the 6th grade.
See, you made a good point about so obviously whoever wrote that curriculum felt like, you know what? This is something that is going to be important to these kids. They need to know about finances. They need
Absolutely.
to know about that. They did the same in Richmond County because Fort Gordon, which is now Fort Eisenhower, their schools fell under us. And the Technical Career Magnet School had their own bank literally on campus, up, through the high schools. And again, this is a good topic. Like, what should be taught in public schools?
Well, I think everything should be taught in public school that's taught in private school. And that's the problem. It's not, because they don't. If they did that, it would close the gap quicker. Right. And so it's all by design. Like, to me, the school system, the prison system, religion, all of it, to me, in my opinion, is tied together for the benefit to keep people in their place. Right. So, because the things that are being taught in these institutions that are created by the powers that be do not benefit us. They don't benefit us. As Black people, they do not benefit. Public school system does not benefit Black children.
So here's the challenge, right? And, working in education, you have state legislators that discuss your state curriculum. There are some core things that must be taught to hand it down from, going back to the Committee of 10, back in the 1800s. These are some things that have to be taught because everyone will not go to college, and the people that do go to college will not go to college in your home state, right? So we want some people to say, well, no matter what state you're in and where you're from.
I get standardizing it, right? 1 + 1 = 2. You got to learn how to this, that. But what I'm talking about is in high school. Why aren't you telling every child about dual enrollment? Why aren't you telling every child that they can graduate with an associate's degree before they even get out of? You see what I'm saying?
Money.
Like, these are things that only a certain demographic of children are being told and taught.
Well, that comes down to the administrator.
If you don't know, and as a parent, if you don't know,
right,
then your child won't know. But
that comes down to the administrator, though, at the school, and that's why it's so important with who you hire at the schools. A lot of people have incompetent leaders. You have administrators who have jobs because it was a favor. They're in the right fraternity or sorority. They laid down with the right person, and they have these positions. And when you talk about small rural areas where this is the only school, now you're affecting the entire community. I agree with what you're saying. And again, it's like those things that you all are saying should be given to everyone. They hold on to it and use it like an award.
And that's the point. They do. If you go to any high school graduation in May,
yep,
and I guarantee you when you see that top 10, you might have two black kids if you're lucky. If you're lucky, right? In that top 10%, because guess what? These are the kids that they have chosen and they have said, and the black kids that are in that percentage, their parents more than likely are educators or have some sort of inside track. You know what I'm saying? To make sure that their child is also on this track. But what about the rest of them? What about it? Because all the guidance counselors aren't telling all the kids the same thing. Why are you not giving this child the same information that you gave this child?
Again,
Who's advocating for this child?
Who's advocating? Yeah. Especially the parents that, stay up till 10 o'clock playing PlayStation and dropping them off. These kids need advocates, of course, guidance counselors that care about them and then doesn't even know about their programs. My bonus son is getting ready to graduate from high school, and I'm like, you're applying all these colleges, and he's going to Spring Hill, which is a charter school, and he doesn't have these schools offering him money. Like, you're a straight A kid who took all these AP classes. You should have, if not a full ride, some kind of partial scholarships coming your way. Nothing's been told to him through guidance at all.
Somebody in the chat said the gatekeeping. Somebody in the chat said the gatekeeping of knowledge is a continuum of institutional racism and classism. Absolutely, absolutely, 1000%.
But now also a lot goes back to the parents now. Now that you know better, do better.
But a lot of parents don't know better.
That's because they choose not to. That's because they choose not to.
How many really, really, really smart children, right? Mamas, single mom, working 3-4 jobs, lucky that the kid is doing well, you know what I'm saying, staying out of trouble. So she's not really there.
It's because they choose not to know. They can tell you where the party at Sunday through Sunday.
I'm talking about them kind. I'm talking about the kind of, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the kind of parent that is concerned about their child's well-being, but they can't get up to the school because of their work schedule. They can't do this. They're depending on these people to help guide their child because they might not know.
They might not know.
They might not have a college education. They might have dropped out of high school in the 10th grade. So no, they don't know. They're a good parent. They're a concerned parent.
They trust that school's doing the best. Yeah, they trust the school's doing what's best for their child.
Correct. All they know is they check in the grades. The child is making good grades, but they don't know nothing about no dual enrollment. They wouldn't even know what that is.
And you know what's so funny is the dual enrollment, I agree, Tavonna, should be presented to every student.
Every student.
Now,
you know what? I did it with my son. My son, and it was a fight. They were acting like I had lost my mind to even ask for it.
Because they want to keep it as something glorified and some reward for the top students. And
I was like, absolutely not. My child went to USC. He was enrolled at USC Sumter. He had 12 college credits before he even got out of high school. You see what I'm saying? Because that's right. It exactly did. So my thing is, no, you cannot just,
Let me tell you, I want to share something quickly. We're down to 9 minutes. And how detrimental this can be, right? This is a nightmare. God's honest truth. You think this came out of a movie. I took AP Calculus as a junior, right? My teacher and I, we used to get into it. I was the only junior in the class. My schedule was different from everyone else, so I came to class late every day. I'm like, I got to go to lunch. We're on a different schedule, blah, blah, blah. She kept threatening to fail me. I'm like, this lady's crazy. I'm like the top math student in the state. I'm not worried about that part. I took the AP exam. I passed the AP exam, but I didn't know where I was going to college, right? I took it as a junior. At the end of the semester, we got into an argument. She failed me in calculus with a grade of a 69. So my senior year, I didn't take a math class. I didn't decide to go to USC until the day my brother was taking me to Clemson. But again, I have scholarships. I've been accepted to multiple schools. I get dropped off at USC. Never send my AP scores because this lady told me that if I did not pass her class, I would not receive AP credit. Remember, I'm a 17-year-old kid. I don't know how this stuff works. In fact, at that time, I was the only student to pass to get AP credit at my high school. So I never sent the scores to USC. Finished school, Damon. Remember I started teaching your senior year, 99. I got a call from payroll saying that, hey, there's an issue. Your degree, you're 1 credit hour short. I called USC. They were like, hey, man, we apologize. Your advisor miscalculated your credit hours. They gave you 130, but you really have 127. I needed 128 hours for my degree. I was literally 1 credit hour short for my degree. I needed 128 hours. I had 130, marked, did everything, started teaching, waiting to get my stuff finalized. And I was told that a course was counted twice. It was an English class I took my freshman year. You know, I could, he was passing. So I did just enough to get out of the class. Well, when I started approaching graduation, you know how USC, these companies are posting these ads for jobs, and they were like GPA greater than blah, blah, blah. And everybody, you got to have a 3.25 or 3.5. So I retook the English class, got an A, trying to lift my GPA up. My advisor didn't realize it was the same English class. So he counted it twice. You can only get credit for it once. So now I got to go back to USC for 1 credit hour to get my degree. And I'm teaching, I'm working, right? So they were like, well, your final 30 hours must be completed on campus. There was no distance ed and a lot of online courses and stuff available back then. This is 99, going into 2000. So I worked for several years, and I found out that just talking to this guy, a professor, because I had really, really good jobs. I showed my transcript, explained what happened, and I got hired like I had my degree. So for 10 years, I never let it bother me, didn't say a word about it. And I met my wife in '08. We talked about it. And she was like, you need to find out what you need to do to get this degree official. I called the school, and the guy, and just talking about the calculus class, he was like, are you sure you passed the AP exam? I'm like, yeah. He said, well, we don't see it on your transcript. I said, well, I didn't know I was going to school. I never sent it to USC. He said, well, call the college board. They'll have your scores on file. I called the college board, got my scores, sent it to USC. That course was worth 4 credit hours. If you pass the AP exam in high school, you get 4 credit hours. And that's how I got my degree 10 years later in 2009. So I said all that, Damon, to say that my parents didn't know. My mom didn't know at the time. I didn't know. I went by what my calculus teacher told me. And I hate Ms. McIntyre to this day with a passion. I hate evil, incompetent educators because that's so detrimental. You know, I literally had to go back. I had moved back to Columbia prior to, because the final 30 hours had to be done on campus. In order to get financial aid, you got to take 12 credit hours. So now I'm registered for all these classes, student loans, all this crap, when all I had to do was get my AP score sent and have my degree. Could have been making teachers pay back in 99, 2000 versus subpay. So you cost me thousands of dollars in salary, cost me thousands in student loans because of some misinformation. And I mean, that's terrible. Yeah, they do. Someone said they get mad when you're really smart. And that's what it was. Teachers want you to be submissive. A lot of times they want you to be submissive and just do as they say. They don't want people that are like independent thinkers or critical thinkers. They want people to just listen, retain what they say, and regurgitate what they said on Friday. And that's how you're rewarded. Yeah, that is what happened to me. 100% true story. It was terrible. Tamara, I saw your mic come on. What do you have to say?
I was going to say, those are the teachers that we need out of the classroom. I mean, it is what it is. And it's, unfortunately, you were a victim of someone's ignorant teacher or a teacher that felt doing that power struggle that some people feel they have with, like, I'm the superior voice in this classroom. What I say goes, and you'll never amount to anything. That's when people tell them. I hear these stories where grown adults. Like my teacher told me I would amount to nothing and I would be in jail or this and that. But, like what kind of person does this? It's like a soulless person to ruin a child's life or an individual's life by instilling these negative values. But not everyone, is meant to be a true educator. It's got to be a love from the heart and soul.
Right, a passion for it. And you have to be able to separate a lot of things too.
You do.
And I see it firsthand where people are trying to indoctrinate kids. That's what I love about math, because math is universal. When you get into certain subjects, I conducted a PD session on Friday with my teachers, and we talked about proof in logic tables, conditional statements, truth values, and things like that, and analyzing ads, generalized ads, scare tactics, or exaggerated ads. And we had to write them in the form of a conditional statement. And an argument almost started between adult teachers over a conditional statement. Someone said MAGA. And if we had to write that as a conditional statement, if you vote for Donald Trump, then you're going to make America great again. Just analyzing a statement. And a whole argument broke out. So again, in math, we don't have to worry about that, because I don't care what your beliefs are, what you think, 2 + 2 is 4. So Tamara, when you think about the things that you want us to teach, we have to be open and understanding that, people have different views and beliefs. And although we feel like what we believe and think is correct, we can't impose that on others. Or we shouldn't impose it on others.
I agree.
Fastest 2 hours ever. It's amazing. Tank, what do you have to say for us?
Even though I missed half of it, good show, good show.
You were here, man. You contributed a lot as well.
Yeah, I had to get off a little. I had to take care of stuff with Elon.
And Tank, I'm gonna work on my African American studies.
Please do.
I felt a little something. I was like, oh my goodness. Kind of like I had to swallow my pride a little bit. I'm gonna have to go back to that person I was having the conversation with. Like, you were right.
You're not Tank. I might have to continue on a Facebook Live post, man, but you can't go live on Facebook while you're at work.
Hey, we go.
Huh? You want me to invite you tomorrow? Will you join us? We're going to talk about education, course offerings, what should be done, what should be taught. We just want to continue our conversation. So if you all want to join us, we're going to be on Facebook, and we're down to like 45 seconds. Any closing statements, comments, questions, concerns, anyone?
I would just say keep fighting for what you believe in and just keep your voice. Do not be silent. We have a tough 4 years ahead of us. Even more than that, we just have to
No. We can change this in 2. Yeah, they're voting 26.
And the local elections are so important. So when we're going to talk about that on Facebook, the importance of the local elections, because those are your board members. They control who superintendents are.